things cats love and things cats hate elements or lists? All right, cool. So the answer here was to just put all our lists in a single div element. So we can put the div right there, opening tag right there, and then a closing tag right there. I think we want this p element too. There we go. Like that. Right, so I think that's all they wanted. There we go. Next challenge. Right, declaring the doc type of an HTML document. So the challenges so far have covered specific HTML elements and their uses. However, there are a few elements that give overall structure to your page and should be included in every HTML document. So at the top of your document, you need to tell the browser which version of HTML your page is using. So since HTML is like an evolving language, it's updated a lot. Most major browsers support the latest specification though, which is HTML5. But older web pages may use previous versions of the language. So you can actually tell the browser, what kind of HTML to use. And then here they show you how to do that. So by putting that there, you tell the browser what kind of HTML you want to use. For HTML5, it's just HTML. You just put HTML, not 5. You just put HTML. For other HTML versions, you can probably put 4, 3, 2, or just. I don't think you can use HTML1 anymore. But HTML2, 3, and 4 work if you want to use those versions of HTML. But usually you always want to use the latest version, which is 5. So to use the latest version, you just put HTML like that. So the uppercase, the exclamation mark and the uppercase doc type is important, especially for older browsers. And the HTML is not case sensitive. So the HTML can be like this, or like this. It just needs to say HTML, like that. Okay. There really is no set dates for them to come out. I mean, usually it gets like these little changes every so often, but they're pretty small and they're only like bug fixes for like very obscure things that might happen. But as far as like big jumps, like from HTML4 and HTML5, the last update we had, the last update we have was HTML4, and HTML4 from HTML5, HTML4 was out for 10 years until HTML5 came along. So it could take a while. Yeah, HTML5 didn't come out for 10 years since the last version of it. But yeah, there really is no like set dates. Let's see. So next, they're asking for the rest of your code. Yeah, no problem. Next, they're asking for the rest of your code needs to be wrapped in HTML tags. So the opening HTML tag goes directly below the doc type HTML line. So there's HTML like that, and then HTML like that. So then here's an example of the page structure. Should look like this. And for the challenge, they want you to add a doc type tag for HTML5 at the top of the blank HTML document in the editor, and under it, add an opening and closing HTML tags which wrap around an H1 element. The heading can include any text you want. So yeah. So once you're done with that, just give me a 1 or a smiley face. Cool, yeah, so they just wanted you to create a blank, well, not a blank HTML document, but a pretty basic one, like this. And then slash h1, just like that. And then put anything you want in it. Hello world. There we go. Okay. And then run tests. There we go. All right. And I think this might be the last one. Okay, so defining the head and body of an HTML document. So you can add another level of organization in your HTML document within the HTML tags using the head and body elements. So in your in that About Me page, you might have seen the head and the body elements. And any markup, so for the head, any markup information about your page would go into the head tag. And then any markup with the content of the page, what displays for the user, would go into the body tag. So the head is for things that the user isn't supposed to see. And by that, I mean things like linking to, well, we'll get into it later, but there's this thing called CSS style sheets. And CSS style sheets, they basically, you link them to your HTML and they change how your page looks. So you might have seen a few of those in your head, in your head tags, but basically that's something the user isn't supposed to see, but that the HTML page needs to change it. So, and then they also tell you about the metadata tags here. So yeah, link, the link tag, the meta tag, the title tag, and the style tag typically go into the head element. And basically everything else goes into the body tag. Yeah, so elements that the user isn't supposed to see goes into the head. Elements that the user is supposed to see, like the content of the page, goes into the body. Okay. So then they give you an example of a page's layout. So this is what all HTML pages are supposed to have, which is the doc type, the HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag. All HTML sites should have this. So yeah, the challenge here is to edit the markup so that there's a head and a body. The head element should only contain the title tag, and the body element should only contain the H1 and P tag. So do that challenge, and then once you're done, just give me a wonder smiley face. Okay, cool. Yeah, so all I wanted you to do is reformat all the code. So just head like that. Then /head, close it. And then the body tag wraps around everything else. Body tag, closing tag. Okay, I think that's all they wanted. Let me run the tests. There we go. All right. So let's go to the next challenge. Let's see. And there we go. Yeah, so that's the end. That was the end of the introduction to HTML. And then this next section is going to be about basic CSS. So cascading style sheets, or CSS, tells the browser how to display the text and other content that you write in HTML. Note that CSS is case sensitive, so you do need to be careful with your capitalization, unlike HTML. Where in HTML you can actually you shouldn't capitalize your tag names, but they do let you do that. But in CSS, everything is case sensitive, so you have to be careful with that. CSS has been adopted by all major browsers and allows you to control color, fonts, positioning, spacing, sizing, decorations, and transitions. There are three main ways to apply CSS styling. You can apply inline styles directly to HTML elements with the style attribute. So in HTML, there's a style attribute, and that attribute allows you to inject CSS directly into an element. It's not exactly best practice, so it's not something you should do. You should always place CSS anywhere else other than directly into HTML elements. But we'll get into that later. Alternatively, you can place CSS roles within style tags in an HTML document. And then finally, you can write CSS rules in an external style sheet and then reference that file in the HTML document. So yeah, you can write CSS files in like a different folder, and then that HTML file, the HTML file can link to that CSS. And then they're talking about the style attribute of your H2 element. The property that is responsible for the color of an element's text is the color style property. And here they show you how you would set your H2 element's text to color blue. Like this. Let me do that so you can see it better. Yeah, like this. H2 style equals to color and then blue. And then you can see inside the quotes. And then inside the quotes, we have the color property, and then a colon, and then the actual value of whatever property you're using, and then at the end, a semicolon. So yeah, it's good practice to end your inline style declarations with a semicolon, like that. So the challenge here is to change your H2's element style so that the text color is red. So they want you to use the style attribute on the H2 element. This H2 element, up here. They want you to use the style attribute to change its color to red. So once you're done with that, just give me a 1 or a smiley face, and we can move on. Cool, okay. So the answer here was just to use the style attribute on the cat photo app heading, and we just do color, red, like that. And now it's red, just like that. Let's run the tests, and there we go. Next challenge. Okay, basic CSS, using CSS selectors to style elements. So with CSS, there are hundreds of CSS properties that you can use to change the way an element looks on your page. When you entered that H2, the attribute, that style attribute into cat photo app, you were styling an individual H2 element with inline CSS, which stands for cascading style sheets. So you're using inline CSS to style that heading. That's one way to specify the style of an element, but there is a much better way to do that. So at the top of your code, you want to create a style block like this. So at the top of the code, they mean like even above everything. And inside that style block, you can create a CSS selector for all H2 elements. So for example, if you wanted all H2 elements to be red, you would add a styled rule that would look like this. So this is how CSS rule sets look. This is what CSS rule sets look like. This whole thing right here, this is called a rule set. So note that it's important to have both opening and closing curly brackets, like here and here. And you also need to make sure that your element's style definition is between the opening and closing style tags. And then finally, to be sure, add a semicolon to the end of each of your element style rules. So this is a rule right here. This is a rule set. This right here is a selector. This is a property, and this is a value. So your rules should have a property, a semicolon, a value, and a semicolon at the end. I meant colon here, and then semicolon here. So yeah, they want you to delete the h2 elements inline style attribute here, the inline one. And then they want you to add the necessary CSS to turn all h2 elements blue. To turn all h2 elements blue. So once you're done with that, just let me know when you're done. All right, cool. So the answer here was to just create a style tag at the top, just like that. Slash style, and then inside create a rule set. Yeah, it's pretty simple so far. HTML and CSS are pretty basic languages, and once you get the fundamentals down, which all they're teaching you is the fundamentals, they won't tell you everything about it, but once you do know the fundamentals of it, you basically know the language, because there's a site called MDN, which has all the CSS properties that are in HTML and CSS right now. And once you know the fundamentals, you can basically just Google what you want to change. Like say if you wanted to change how bolded a font was, there's a property on there that on MDN that you can search up called font weight. And yeah, I can actually give you the link to the site. Let me see. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. So MDN is called. This site is called documentation, and in programming, documentation just means any piece of basically an article that describes something. And in programming, that's usually like a programming language, or yeah, I know. Here you go. Here's this. Here's the link, and you can screen share this too, like that. Yeah, so that link will take you over here, and they do have tutorials, but they're not that great. They only really like tell you about everything. I mean, you can go through them like after you go through this course. I just like this course a lot better. These ones aren't really interactive, but they do have good documentation. So on the left of the page right here, you see like elements, HTML elements, and they tell you about all the HTML elements here, all of them. And since you already know HTML, you already know the fundamentals of HTML. So all you have to do is search up what you want to do, and you can do it now. So like say, let's see, tables right here. So if you wanted to create a table, you could click table, and they'll tell you exactly how to use it. So right here, they show you an example of how it's used, like this. So this creates this table header, like that. And then they even tell you about all its attributes and everything. Yeah, see the examples here. It's like simple tables, and then more examples over here, like this. But yeah. So once you know the fundamentals of HTML and CSS, you're basically at the point where you can just Google and find out what you want to do, and then just code it in based off examples. So yeah, it's been pretty simple so far. They're pretty basic languages. Yeah. All right. So back to the lesson. Let's see. Yeah. So the answer here was to just h2 tag like that, h2 selector right here like that. So now that we've selected the h2 element, we can use a property. So I'm going to do color blue. So we run the tests. Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, right. They want you to take off the internal styling right there. Run the test. There we go. Okay. So you can go to the next challenge. All right, basic CSS. So using a CSS class to style an element. So classes are reusable styles that can be added to HTML elements. So then here's an example of a CSS class declaration, and you can see that there's a dot in front of it, and then the class name. So to create a class, this basically works the same way. There's nothing else special. You just put the selector here. H2 is also a selector as well, just like this one right here. H2 is a selector, and this is also known as a selector. And it just has a dot in front of it because it's referring to a class. Okay. So now you've seen that we've created a CSS class called blue text within the style tag. You can apply a class to an HTML element by using the class attribute. So just like the ID attribute and every other attribute we've used so far, it's just like any normal attribute that you can put in HTML. But this HTML attribute adds this class called blue-text to cat photo app, and CSS sees that, and then it turns that H2 element blue because it's supposed to right here. So note that in your CSS style element, class names start with a period. In your HTML class attribute, the class name does not include that period. So yeah, right here, you don't want to put periods in classes anyways. So there's no period here. There's a period there. Yeah. So inside your style element, the challenge here is inside your style element, change the H2 selector to red text and update the colors value from blue to red. Give your H2 elements the class attribute with the value of red text. Once you're done with that, just let me know. Okay, cool. So they want you to change this selector right here. They want you to change it to red-text. Then they want you to change the value of the color property to red. And then they want you to add the class attribute to the H2 element, call it red-text. You can see that the text is red because we have a class called red-text. CSS sees that red-text class and makes it red. So we can run the tests. There we go. Next challenge. Style multiple elements with a CSS class. So classes allow you to use the same CSS styles on multiple HTML elements. So you can see this by applying your red text class to the first P element. So yeah, that's just the challenge. They want you to apply the red text class to the P element, the paragraph element. So if you're doing that, let me know. Cool. Okay. So they just want you to add this class to the P element. I mean this one. Yeah. See, and then now it's red, like that. Yeah. So you can use classes on more than one element to style multiple elements using just one role set. So this is why I was talking about how inline styles aren't good practice, because if you were to use inline styles, you can't use selectors. You'd have to put this right here, color red, and then you'd have to do that again for this one as well. But then say you want to have this class also make everyone's font like something else, like have their font be something else. You'd have to change both of those to do it. And you could probably just change both of those and it'd be fine, but on a much larger scale, this would be much harder to go through every single inline style and then change every single style element here. So that's why I don't recommend like using inline styles, because they're really hard to manage. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna run the tests. There we go. Right. Next challenge. Okay, so changing the font size of an element. Font size is controlled by the font-size CSS property, like this. And inside the same style tag, they want you to create an entry for the P elements, for the paragraph elements, and set the font size to 16 pixels. And they want you to do that in the red text class. So in the red text class, they want you to use the font size property. And they want you to set the font size of all the P elements to 16 pixels. So once you're done with that, just let me know. They want you to, inside the same style tag that contains your red text class, they want you to create an entry for P elements. So they want you to select all P elements and then set their font size. So say I wanted to set the font size of all the LI elements, I just, inside the same tag, I create a new rule set like this, and then set their font size to whatever I want to, like that. Yeah. Yeah. You can put multiple rule sets. Just you have to put them under each other. Cool. Okay. So yeah, all I wanted you to do was select the P element. So create a new rule set. P element, like that. And then they want you to set all P elements font sizes to 16 pixels. Like that, right? Set the same style tag, yeah. Oh, size didn't really change, did it? 24. Okay, that's just its default size, which is 16. Okay. Run the test, there we go. Okay, next challenge. Basic CSS. Set the font family of an element. So you can set which font an element should use by using the font family property. For example, if you wanted to set the H2 element's font to sans serif, sans-serif is just a font name. And you'd use the following CSS to do that. So yeah, it's just selecting the H2 element, rule set using curly brackets, and then the font family property, and then the name of the font. So they want you to make all your P elements use the monospace font, So do that and let me know when you're done. Cool. Okay. So all they wanted you to do was make all your P elements use the monospace font. So for this, you don't have to create a second rule set. But if you did create a second rule set, what would happen is font family monospace. If you did create a second rule set, what would happen is the second rule set, the one that's the lowest rule set, will overwrite any other rule sets that happened. It'll completely overwrite them. So it won't even add like font 16 pixels to this one. It'll just overwrite the entire thing. So yeah, but they just want you to do this like that. They want you to make all p tags have a font family of monospace. So run the tests. There you go. Okay, next challenge. Importing Google fonts. So in addition to specifying common fonts that are found on most operating systems, we can also specify a non-standard custom web font for use on our website. So there are many sources for different fonts, web fonts on the internet, but for this example, they're going to focus on the Google Fonts library. Yeah, I like using Google Fonts too. It's a really good resource. Google Fonts is a free library of web fonts that you can use in your CSS by referencing the font's URL. Yeah, Google Fonts is really cool. So let's go ahead and import and apply a Google font. So to import a Google font, you can copy the font's URL from the Google Fonts library and then paste it into your HTML. So for this challenge, they're going to do the lobster font. And to do this, copy the following code snippet and paste it to the top of your code editor before the opening style element. And then now, after that, you'd be able to use the lobster font family or the lobster font in your CSS by using lobster as the family name in the following example, like this. Okay. So the generic name is optional and there's a fallback font in the case that other specified font is not available. So what I mean by that is, say the lobster font fails to load because Google has an error or something and the site goes down. The second one, the comma, that comma right there, we have the family name, which is lobster. Let's say that fails, it goes down to the next font it tries to find. And usually that one is the one that's installed on every computer. So like the monospace font and sans serif, those are two fonts that are on everyone's computer already. But say for something like lobster, that comes from Google's font API. So that one doesn't come with everyone's computer. So it has to be loaded from somewhere else. But say that fails to load, then we'll go to the generic name, which is the font that's on everyone's computer and won't fail to load. So you usually want to do that because say if something happens and it fails to load, your site might look really weird if it doesn't have a fallback, something to fall back to. So yeah. But here they're saying that the generic name is optional and the fallback font in the case that the other specified font is not available. But that'll be covered in the next challenge. So family names are case sensitive and need to be wrapped in quotes if there's a space in the name. So if you're using the open sans font, you'd have to put quotes around it, but in the lobster font, since there's no spaces in it. All right, so the challenge for this is to create a font family CSS rule that uses the lobster font and ensure that it'll be applied to your H2 element. So they want you to select the H2 element and then give it the lobster font. So yeah, let me know when you're done with that. Where the font family part should go. Oh, do you mean the property? This property right here? Okay, so it's just like any normal CSS property. Yeah, it's like any other normal CSS. So it's like exactly like color and font family, like here, this too. But they want you to they want you to select the H2 element. They want you to give the font to the H2 element. So say I wanted to give of font to all the li elements, I would just create a new selector, and then do font dash family like this. Yeah, and then all you have to do is just put the font there. Yeah, no problem. All right, cool. So the answer here was to just do an H2 element, just like that, create an H2 rule set, create a rule set that selects H2, the H2 element, and then font dash family, and then lobster as the font name. I don't think they're asking you to create a fallback, so I can just do that. And then they also want you to link the font like that above the style right there, and then there it is, lobster. But let's say if if it fails to link, I can simulate that by screwing up the link like that. It'll do this like this is the basic font, this is the normal font, like the default font in HTML, and that happens when the font fails to load. And you can actually they'll go into this in the next section, so I'll just leave it like this. So yeah, but I'll run the tests. I think that's all I'm looking for. So yeah, next challenge. Okay, right. Specifying how fonts should degrade. Right. So there are several default fonts that are available in all browsers. These generic font families include monospace, serif, and sans serif. When one font is available, you can tell the browser to degrade to another font. For example, if you wanted an element to use the Helvetica font, but degrade to the sans serif font when the Helvetica font isn't available, you can specify it as follows. So you can do Helvetica, and then a comma, and then sans serif, like that. And then after you do that, if this fails to load, the sans serif font will load in instead. So generic font families aren't case sensitive, and they also don't need quotes because they're CSS keywords. Yeah. So that's for generic font families like serif, sans serif, and monospace. To begin, they want you to apply the monospace font to the H2 element, so now that it has two fonts, lobster and monospace. In the last challenge, you imported the lobster font using the link tag. Now comment out that import of the lobster font using HTML comments that you learned before, and then from Google Fonts, so that isn't available anymore, notice how your H2 element degrades into the monospace font. Yeah. So they want you to create a rule set, CSS rule set, to apply the monospace font to the H2 element so that it has two fonts, which is the lobster and monospace. Yeah. So in the font family, they want you to have those two fonts. Oh, cool. There we go. So yeah, the answer here was to just they just want the lobster font to degrade to monospace, so you just put monospace right there. And then they want you to comment out the lobster font, and then it goes to monospace. So now I can run the tests, and there we go. All right, next challenge. There we go. Okay. Cool. So basic CSS, sizing our images. So CSS has a property called width that controls an element's width. Just like with fonts, we use the pixels to define an image's width. For example, if you wanted to create a CSS class called larger image that gave HTML elements a width of 500 pixels, we'd use this right here. So style tags, and then inside we have a class. This is a class example, just an example class called larger dash image, and then they're using the width property right there, and they're setting it to 500 px or 500 pixels. And then create a class. They want you to create a class called smaller dash image, and use it to resize the image so that it's only 100 pixels wide. So yeah, they want you to resize this image right here to 100 pixels using a class. So once you're done with that, just let me know. All right, cool. So the answer here was to just create a new class in CSS called smaller dash image, and then inside that width 100 pixels, just like that. And then create a class and put it on that ing element and do width. Oh, sorry, not that. Smaller dash image, just like that. And then, yeah, so now you can see that the image is 100 pixels wide. So now if I click run the tests, there we go. So we can go next challenge. Okay, so adding borders around your elements. Right, so CSS borders have properties like style, color, and width. So for example, if you wanted to create a red 5-pixel border around an HTML element, you can use this class. So this class, you can see it sets the border color to red, then the border width to 5 pixels, so 5 pixels of width in the border, and then the border style is solid. Yeah, so the solid means just like just the normal lines around the box. There's also dotted, which creates dotted lines around the box, around the border. So yeah, so they want you to create a class called thick green border, and this class should have a 10px solid and green border around an HTML element. You can apply the class to your cat photo, and then remember that you can apply multiple classes to an element using its class attribute. And then here they show you how to do that. Since classes can't have the space inside of them, classes aren't supposed to have spaces inside of them. They're all supposed to be together. So you can actually use spaces to have multiple classes like that. So yeah, classes aren't supposed to have spaces because the spaces are used to space the classes out and have multiple classes. But once you're done with that, just let me know. Cool, okay. So the answer here was to just create a class called thick green border. And we're gonna make that class inside the style tags right there. We're just gonna make a new row set. And then they want you to use border dash color to make it green. they want you to use border dash width to make it 10 pixels wide. And then they want you to use border dash style to make it solid. Okay, and then they want you to apply this class. They want you to apply that class to the image. Oh, that's right here. So smaller image and paste that in right there. And thick green border. Now you can see the thick green border around the image. Okay. So run the test. There we go. Go to next challenge. All right. Adding rounded corners with border radius. Yeah, so you can add you can round out these corners using border radius. You can specify a border radius with pixels. You can give your cat a photo. You give your cat a photo a border radius of 10. Note this challenge allows for multiple possible solutions. Yeah, so I do it here though. You could put the border radius here, but I wouldn't. Usually you want to keep everything consistent. So I'd put border there. I do it there. So yeah, once you're done with that, just let me know. Okay, so the answer here was to just simply do border dash radius, and then yeah, do 10 pixels, 10 px, just like that. And you can see that the border is now curved like that. Okay, and I think that's all they're asking for. We go next challenge. There we go. All right, so we're going to do one more. We're just going to do one more. All right, so this is making circular images with border radius. So in addition to pixels, you can also specify the border radius using a percentage. So by giving your cat photo a border radius of 50%, you can turn it into a circle. So give your cat photo a border radius of 50%. And when you're done with that, just let me know. Okay, so yeah, that was pretty simple. Border dash radius. Oh, yeah, there. So border dash radius, but then we want to change that to 50%, and then it's a circle. You can also change that to 75%. I think, does that work? Or 25%? Yeah, and then you can use different kind of percentages to do it. But 50% makes it a circle. So yeah, 50%, just like that. And we'll do one more, because that was pretty quick. We'll do one more. Yeah, okay, should have time for that. So giving a background color to a div element. So we learned about div elements last time. We learned that their only purpose is really to just hold groups of elements. And but you can also change, they're still HTML elements, so you can still change properties inside of them. So for example, if you wanted an element's background to be green, you'd put this within your style element. So you have the background dash color, CSS property, and then you just set it to green. So they want you to create a class called silver background with the background color of silver. So yeah, and they want you to assign that class to your div element. Yeah, so they want you to create a class called silver background with the background color property equal to silver, and they would want you to assign that silver background class to your div element. So once you're done with that, just let me know. Right, so the answer here was just to create another class, silver dash background, like that, and then background color of silver, like that. And then they want you to give that silver background class to the div that holds the li elements. Class equals to div, or class equals silver background, and there we go, a silver background. So we run the tests, and there we go. Okay, so we're gonna stop here because we're almost reaching an hour. So that's all the time we have for today. It was really fun working with you because this is probably going to be the last. Yeah, this is the last one of the week. So we won't have any next week. We won't have any classes next week, but maybe next week we're going to start doing them, but not the full entire week. Maybe like Tuesdays or Thursdays or some other dates, but not like the full entire week. But we will be doing more of these free classes in the future. But for now, you can actually keep doing this free code camp lesson because they have everything you need to do them. They're all interactive and they tell you how to do it. So here we were at setting giving a background color to a div element. So that's like this is like only a fraction of actual tutorials here that they give you, and the entire responsive web design lesson is actually 300 hours, and it's quite long. But this is just here to give you the entire basics. But if you do finish this course, it does tell you everything you need to know about learning HTML, and it's actually a really good course. And even after that, even after web development, they'll even teach you about like algorithms and data structure using a programming language called JavaScript. And they'll keep teaching you more and more about this, and you'll soon learn that you have everything you need to create a website. So it's a really cool site, and I like it for that. So if you want to keep doing more web development, just stay on this course. Yeah, it's really cool. They go through web design and then algorithms and front-end libraries, and then all of this is everything you need to get started being a web developer. All of this. And it's just this really nice set track. So yeah, if you want to keep doing this, if you want to keep practicing web development, you can use this too. I also gave you the link to MDN. So say you wanted to do something for your About Me site, you can just Google it there, or you can just use Google in general now. Since you know HTML, you can probably like read things. Like say if I searched up how do I make a image into a circle CSS, if I just search that into Google, I'll probably get like a Stack Overflow, something on Stack Overflow, like right here. Yeah, okay, maybe nothing on Stack Overflow, but here we have something from W3 Schools. W3 Schools is a nice website too. They tell you how to do specific things. There's also medium.com for articles about things, but W3 Schools is more focused on programming. A site that's focused more on programming. So if you just go here, they'll tell you how to make rounded images. So yeah, we already know this though. You just use border-radius 50% to do that. But yeah, the resources are out there. If you want to keep practicing web development though, just stay on this track. So yeah, thanks for coming to class though. It was nice working with you this whole week. So yeah. Yeah, no problem. And if you ever need like help, just remember to email me. I can help out with anything related to web development. Yep. All right. No problem. See ya.